The first female candidate has entered the race for the leadership of the NDP.
And I am running because I believe that we need a clear vision, a principled vision, and we need to build a movement for fundamental change.
Manitoba MP Niki Ashton's hat is officially in the ring for the party's top job. Ashton pledged a progressive left-wing platform that included tuition-free education and the need for more environmental responsibility. So Ms. Ashton is joining us from Ottawa this morning. Good morning and happy International Women's Day to you.
Good morning. Happy International Women's Day to you and everyone watching.
All right, you said in your announcement that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals had out-lefted the NDP. I think a lot of people thought that after the results of the last election. Why is your platform the one that will get the party back to where it wants to be on the political spectrum, and where do you see that?
Well, we've got a lot of work ahead of us without question. I mean, I would say that the NDP is at a crossroads, and the last election proved that. We did lose a lot of ground, and I think many of us said, you know, what's important here is to stand up for our principles, be proud of being progressive, of being on the left, and I would also say that it's important to recognize that Canada is at a crossroads. You know, we're facing two major challenges. One, growing inequality. You know, and it's important to note that in some ways, inequality is growing faster here in Canada than even the U.S., even though we do say we're often better or different than the U.S. The reality is we're becoming more and more like our neighbors to the south when it comes to inequality. And then the other major challenge is climate change. And so in countering both of these big challenges, we need progressive ideas. We need ideas that bring people together rather than driving them apart. And certainly yesterday we put forward a vision that tackles these two issues and says that we need to build a movement for change.
You know, part of, should you win the leadership, part of your job will be to unseat Justin Trudeau in 2019. You were just talking about inequality, but, you know, our Prime Minister has been lauded all over the world for having gender parity in his cabinet. So how will your message of equality, compete with that?
Well, the reference to inequality is more in terms of income and wealth, and the reality is that gender inequality becomes worse off as inequality grows. The 1% in Canada has become wealthier and wealthier over the last few years, much faster than its accumulated wealth in the past, and that's literally taking more and more away from the rest of Canadians. And what's important to recognize here is that we're seeing that inequality in different ways, in Indigenous communities, in racialized communities, in LGBTQ communities, but perhaps one of the clearest ways to see that inequality is when you see what the millennial generation is facing in our country. You know, over the last year and some, I've traveled across the country to talk to millennials, people in my generation, about what they're facing. And, you know, I heard heartbreaking stories, including in places like Toronto and the GTA, communities in Southwest Ontario. You know, we heard from a generation that no longer has the ability to plan for the future, that is very concerned about what lies ahead because of the rise of precarious work, because of the level of indebtedness. And unfortunately, Mr. Trudeau and his government aren't taking these issues on. In fact, just a few months ago, the finance minister told young people in Canada to just get used to it. Those kinds of messages simply aren't good enough. And we all lose out if millennials and certainly if the generation coming up is not doing well. We need to tackle that kind of inequality and certainly see that that Canadians are able to achieve the kind of justice, the kind of equality that we all expect us to be able to do.
So, Ms. Ashton, you did a great job of highlighting what the problems are, but what are you going to do to then fix this issue of reaching out to millennials? You've listened to what the problems are, but what's your fix for them?
Well, yesterday we did unveil some core tenets to this progressive, bold progressive agenda that we've put forward, because it's not a quick fix. You know, we do need to look at a strong focus on job creation and job protection. The reality is that Canada has been losing good family-sustaining jobs, sustainable jobs for quite some time. They're being replaced by part-time precarious work, and that's contributing to the growth of inequality. You know, job creation creation is something that would be attached to so many things. For example, supporting public and social ownership, saying no to privatization, saying no to trade deals that are selling us out, investing in housing and green infrastructure to see that kind of job creation. Looking at different ways that that we can protect jobs in our country. And I come from a part of the country where where we're very concerned about the loss of value-added jobs in the resource sector. Whether it's in the north or in the south, the reality is that Canadians are very concerned about jobs that are leaving their communities. We need to get on that. And obviously, we proposed a number of other key issues. You mentioned them in terms of tuition. Obviously, strong policies on environmental protection, recognizing that if Indigenous peoples don't want pipelines to go through their territories, they can't. If environmental regulations aren't being met, they also can't go forward. Recognizing that in order for us to build a better future for Canadians, we need to tackle inequality, and we also need to deal with climate change.
All right, NDP leadership candidate Niki Ashton, good to talk to you this morning, and we'll be watching in the months ahead.
Thank you. You too.